0, 1. Let's get started.
S&P 500. Now, obviously, if you want to learn the system for yourself or join the undelayed/unmuted live stream, the Patreon has different tiers for you. Okay. Now, if we're going to start off by taking a look at the S&P 500. Now, it is quite unique in the fact that there is a pretty unique range. However, I've kind of dialed it down to what you can see on the chart here, okay? So from this perspective, we're obviously rotating above, below, above. So it won't be characteristic that we break out until we actually go substantially higher, right? Now, from this viewpoint, we would assume that the distance underneath, which would be this bar here, would be the characterized move to the upside, okay? So it won't be until we break above this green line, excuse me, green bar, that I will change to blue. Will we have to actually look at this in terms of a breakout? So that leads me to the variations we need to know. If we just simply push back up and we stall out, then we are going to obviously know that we're still in the range. And in that situation, we should actually look for this thing to completely rotate back to the downside using those various moves above, which will kind of define our targets below, okay? So in this situation, let's just say we go up to that exact point, then obviously we can use that exact point to determine us going back to the downside, all right? Now that's just the first variation. Now the second variation is obviously we could have a breakout to some degree. Now, if a breakout will happen, we will have to see a significant strength as we push up. So we will have to kind of get out of this first level, okay? So that basically is going to look something like this. We push up just like you can see here. However, on the pullback, instead of rotating lower, we actually push and break out and go higher, all right? Now, in this viewpoint, we are now officially broken out of this overall range in which any sort of significant pullback, as you can see illustrated on the chart, should be looked and deemed to be bought up, okay? So from that perspective, this is like the true way to look at the market if you want to be bullish, because again, we're just at the upskirts and an outer layer of the range in which we're still looking to rotate back to the downside, okay? So those are going to be the two primary variations that I would look for tomorrow's session. And there's always a chance, like I always say about basically like every video, is that we could push up. Let me just draw it real fast. We could push up and find ourselves ranging, okay? Now, if we end up ranging at some weird like degree between both areas or even a little bit lower, just be aware that at that point, it is a bullish range, which means we're going to be looking for like fake breakdowns in which we can look to buy and rotate all the way back to the upside, okay? Now, exactly like how we talked about in the range that we have currently and the fact that we mentioned about rotational values. So again, what is above is below, right? We would do the same thing for here. So once we find the midpoint, we can figure out what is the rotational value underneath and then figure out the rotational value above, okay? So those are going to be the primary ways I'm looking at the market for tomorrow. Again, I'm favoring, just so we can kind of end it on a note here, this red case scenario happening. But again, if we gap up higher, then you should all know now how we're looking to play things, okay? So with that being said, let's switch over to one of the stocks of the day. And it's almost like a recap / talk about what's going to happen next because we pretty much nailed this to a T. And this also kind of explains exactly how you can understand how I read charts, okay? So from this variation, we talked about it in the last video that we were looking for some sort of illustration with the red continuation going lower and then a potential bullish return to the upside, okay? Now, we mentioned that if it didn't rise to the upside, we would continue going lower in the effect of this purple line, okay? Now, as you can see, we made the video, I believe, maybe on the 18th, so this red line wasn't even here, I don't think. But nonetheless, we ended up pushing down to this exact level, got this exact sort of bounce that we're looking for, and obviously now we're looking to retest this prior high. And with the aftermarket showing that we're already at this level of 171, I think it's pretty much obvious what's going to happen next, okay? Now, there are a couple key things that we do need to be aware of. Yes, we are looking to rotate back up to this prior high. However, the true meaning of this whole move will be for us to push all the way back up to this prior high at 176, okay? Now, ultimately, you're probably going to be jumping in this a little bit too late for you to be able to, like, at a great risk to reward. But just know that if at any point you notice that the market basically pushes up significantly, okay, just simply look for a pullback and a continuation to go higher. All right, that's the best way to do it because it could collapse, definitely, right? Anything could happen. Most people have gotten in right here at the pretty much end of day at 166. So there will be some profit taking at the open. All right, so if you do find yourselves, again, in this like variation in which you see the yellow case, or you could actually get a scenario just like this, where it pushes up, gives you opportunity to buy low, and then it pushes up higher. There are several different ways to play it. Obviously, you need to know how to play it, but just know that as it rotates up higher, traditionally you want to see yourself buying as low as possible. Okay. So, big congratulations to anyone who saw this and was able to make some plays on Palantir. Now, a stock that you should be able to actually trade for tomorrow is going to be none other than Tesla. Okay, now you can already see what's on the chart here with this triangle being in the formation of happening. And if we now label the midpoint of the triangle as being a very, very important level, which is at 402, we can start doing our analysis on exactly where this thing is going to go. Okay, now subjectively, as you can already see on the chart, we should be pushing up higher, which is already obvious. And if we push up higher and we hold some sort of pullback here and make a new higher high, then at that point you could arguably say that now we are broken out. Okay, now from that point of view, we still have to be a little bit cautious in how we approach things because of the overall momentum. So always look for a two-try opportunity or a twin variation as we look to rotate back to the upside in this circumstance. Okay, so if you really want to be bullish overall, again, wait for a secondary pullback and look to try to buy in as low as you can before we end up retesting this prior high back up at 437. Okay. Now, other than that, if we do get up to this level, I would actually be expecting, to be quite honest, if we do push up higher, I would actually expect us to fail, right, and push back down to the prior low, which is why I was saying 402 or that 401.88 is very important because that's going to be a first target for a lot of people, okay? Now, what should happen if that's going to be the case is that you should basically just barrel down all the way to this prior low, and then we could look for some sort of reprieve later. However, that level at 402 is very important, and because it is so important, the market could actually bounce from there. So don't be too surprised if it does rotate off of that high and then find support at 402 and then kind of continues the overall pattern that we mentioned before, in which we're basically rising up and looking for ways to buy in as we go all the way back up to retest that 437. Okay? So I know there's a little bit of nuance to this and variations to this, but the best way to look at it is, again, just be patient, first of all. Wait for it to break out, pull back, and in the pullback, it will kind of show you its character, okay? If it pulls back within the degree of which we always trade on the live stream, then you should know that it's a higher degree of which it's going to roll over, okay? It's all about entry patterns and techniques, and you can learn about some of this actually in tomorrow morning's live stream if you want to join me at 9:30, okay? So with that being said,
I know it's hard to trust so-called gurus. That's why I live stream my trades every single day, Monday through Friday, starting at 9:30 a.m. The live stream isn't for you to copy my trades, it's to show proof and credibility that my strategy works. The stream is delayed and muted to protect my edge. But if you want to see everything unmuted and in real time, check out the Discord and Patreon links below. You'll get exclusive perks and the opportunity to learn the system for yourself, so you don't miss great opportunities just like this one.
All right, everyone. So you're going to be seeing a trade that I just recently took live during the stream, and ultimately you can be a part of this too, so make sure you look down below. But when taking a look at the trade that we just recently took here, it was the objective coming in was the fact that we had a really big move push to the upside, okay? Now this big move to the upside was basically counterplayed by a pullback, and subsequently our entry was to look to get in right above a couple pivots to retest the prior high, okay? So what you're seeing right now is the replay of my actual entry, which was right here at this 68.1925 area. And again, ultimately, like I was saying before, our main objective from this standpoint is to look to try to retest this prior high back at 68, let's just say 38. So what we are looking at right now is my volatility-based stop loss in perfect action, okay? Every trade and every day has a different stop loss based on the volatility of the day specific. So when taking a look at this trade specifically, you can see that we came relatively close to getting stopped out, okay? However, we did not get stopped out, and we ultimately reversed just like we were expecting. Now, obviously a bit deeper of a correction, but everything was within the wheelhouse of what we were expecting. As you can soon see here in just a few seconds, we ended up getting that first target as it hits right there. And then with a little bit more patience, we did end up getting the second target as well. Now just be aware, after you get your first target, you do want to stop the risk, which is why we did pull the stop up to right around and or above our entry pivot, okay? Now from this standpoint, again, we were just waiting, being patient. And I was referencing in this part of the video what we talked about in our afternoon game plan videos. Okay, I was basically saying that we were looking at this in terms of that green case scenario that we mentioned on our nightly recap videos, and that we were essentially looking for a continuation going higher. Okay, now we kind of phased that back to where we were. We did have that bigger move that went up, and now this is the three-legged pullback, and again the retest to the high. Now, at the very least, I am expecting it to retest the high and potentially continue going higher, which is why we have those targets above us, okay? But in essence, we ended up getting that next target with a bit of patience. Definitely some patience was required. And then we ended up tightening up our stop loss and then getting trailed out without hitting the extension, okay? Now, all in all, this was a $2,500 trade. So if you want to be a part of the situation just like this, then be sure to look down below for the Discord/Patreon links, or come and join the muted, delayed live stream every 9:30 here on the YouTube channel.